Have you ever seen a fighter so young that opponents looked across the ring and assumed experience alone would be enough to beat her? Have you ever watched someone enter a sport and completely rewrite the expectations of what a teenager could accomplish? Because that is exactly what happened when Smilla Sundell stepped into the world of Muay Thai. Long before she became a champion, and long before crowds around the world learned her name, she was simply a young girl from Sweden chasing a dream that most people believed was impossible. Yet while others were planning for the future, Smilla was already building it. This is the story of a fighter who refused to wait her turn. A fighter who transformed talent into dominance and became one of the most feared young athletes in combat sports. And if there is one lesson her opponents have learned again, and again, it is simple: underestimate her once, and you will pay the price. The story begins in Sweden, where Smilla Sundell was born in 2004. Like many children, she was full of energy and curiosity. But unlike most children, she found herself drawn toward martial arts at a very young age. By the time she was 5 years old, she had already begun training in karate. At first, it was about discipline and movement, learning balance, learning focus, learning respect. No one could have predicted that those early lessons would become the foundation of an extraordinary future. Yet every champion starts somewhere, and for Smilla, those first steps on the martial arts journey would shape everything that followed. As she grew older, life presented an opportunity that would completely change her future. Her family moved from Sweden to Thailand. For most people, a move across the world would feel overwhelming. New language, new culture, new surroundings. But for Smilla, this move became the beginning of something special. Thailand is not just another country when it comes to combat sports. It is the birthplace of Muay Thai. The sport is woven into everyday life. The gyms are filled with fighters chasing greatness, and the atmosphere is unlike anything found anywhere else in the world. At the age of 12, Smilla walked into a Muay Thai gym for the very first time. The sounds of gloves hitting pads echoed through the building. Fighters moved with speed and precision. Coaches shouted instructions while athletes pushed themselves beyond exhaustion. For many newcomers, the environment would have been intimidating. For Smilla, it felt like home. Almost immediately, it became clear that she possessed something rare. She was naturally athletic. She learned quickly. Most importantly, she loved the challenge. What started as curiosity soon became obsession. Day after day, she trained harder. Session after session, she improved. While other teenagers focused on ordinary activities, Smilla dedicated herself to mastering every aspect of Muay Thai. Her height gave her advantages. Her reach created problems for opponents. Her determination allowed her to outwork competitors who had far more experience. Within a short period of time, she began competing regularly, and the victories started piling up. Opponents struggled to deal with her style. She was aggressive without being reckless, powerful without sacrificing technique, calm even in difficult situations. Her clinch work became particularly devastating. Fighters who expected to overwhelm the young Swede often found themselves trapped and controlled. The deeper fights went, the stronger she seemed to become. By the age of 15, she had already built a remarkable record and established herself as one of the most promising young talents in Thailand. Then came the decision that changed everything. In 2019, Smilla's family prepared to return to Sweden. For many young athletes, this would have ended the dream. Returning home would mean leaving behind the training environment that had helped her develop. It would mean stepping away from the center of the Muay Thai world. But everyone around her understood something important. Smilla was not an ordinary prospect. Her potential was extraordinary. A difficult conversation followed. She was only 15 years old. Most teenagers are still trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. Smilla was being asked to choose between comfort and opportunity, between certainty and ambition. The easier choice would have been returning home with her family. Instead, she chose the path that required courage. She stayed in Thailand alone. Think about that for a moment. At an age when most people rely heavily on family support, she committed herself entirely to becoming a fighter. There was no guarantee of success, no promise that sacrifices would be rewarded, only belief. Belief in her abilities and belief in the future she was trying to create. The decision transformed her career. Training became her entire focus. Every day revolved around improvement. Every session became an opportunity to sharpen her skills. At that stage, her punching power was still developing, but she compensated with relentless pressure and elite conditioning. Opponents quickly discovered that surviving the early rounds did not mean surviving the fight. Smilla pushed a pace that few could handle. She wore people down physically and mentally. Eventually, many competitors simply broke under the pressure. Her reputation spread rapidly throughout the Muay Thai community. Coaches talked about her. Fighters talked about her. Promoters noticed her. Soon she earned a nickname that perfectly described her fighting style: the Hurricane. The name was appropriate because hurricanes do not arrive quietly. They bring overwhelming force and leave destruction behind. That was exactly what Smilla was doing inside the ring. As the level of competition increased, she did not struggle. She improved. Ranked opponents fell one after another. Experienced fighters discovered that her age meant absolutely nothing once the fight started. She controlled distance beautifully. She attacked relentlessly. She dictated the pace from beginning to end. Before long, she climbed to the top of the rankings and attracted the attention of the biggest promotion in Asia. This was the opportunity every fighter dreams about. A contract with the largest stage available. Global exposure. Elite competition. A chance to prove she belonged among the very best in the world. Most teenagers would have felt overwhelmed. Smilla looked ready. At 16 years old, she signed a contract that would change her life forever. But instead of rushing into competition, she spent time refining every aspect of her game. She trained alongside champions, learned from veterans, improved her elbows, improved her knees, improved her fight IQ. Every day, she became a more complete fighter. When her professional debut finally arrived, expectations were high. Fans wanted to know whether the hype was real. Could this young phenom actually dominate at the highest level? The answer came quickly. The moment the fight began, Smilla looked completely comfortable. There were no signs of nerves, no hesitation, no uncertainty. She established her jab immediately, controlled the distance, landed combinations with precision. As the rounds progressed, her opponent struggled to find answers. The pressure intensified. The damage accumulated. By the end of the performance, there was no longer any doubt. Smilla Sundell was the real deal. That victory accelerated her path toward a championship opportunity. Standing across from her would be an established star with elite credentials and significant experience. Analysts framed the matchup as youth versus experience, potential versus proven success. Yet once the fight began, those narratives quickly disappeared. Smilla adapted beautifully. She neutralized counters, controlled exchanges, imposed her pace. Round after round, her confidence grew stronger while her opponent struggled to keep up. What started as a competitive contest gradually turned into a demonstration of dominance. 5 rounds later, history had been made. At just 17 years old, Smilla Sundell became the youngest champion in the promotion's history. For many athletes, achieving such a milestone would change everything. Fame often brings distractions. Success can create complacency. But Smilla remained the same person. She returned to training, continued working, continued improving. While fans celebrated her accomplishments, she focused on what still needed development. That mindset would prove crucial when new challenges emerged. In late 2023, she faced a dangerous champion from a lower weight class who moved up seeking a major victory. The challenger possessed skill, power, confidence. This was not expected to be an easy fight. Early exchanges were competitive and both fighters had moments of success. But as the fight progressed, Smilla made adjustments. Once she found her rhythm, the momentum shifted dramatically. Combinations began landing more frequently. Knees found their target. Elbows created damage. The pressure became overwhelming. Eventually, the referee had no choice but to stop the contest. Another statement victory. Another reminder that Smilla Sundell was operating on a different level. What impressed people most was her reaction afterward. Rather than celebrating endlessly, she focused on self-evaluation. She openly discussed areas that needed improvement. She criticized her slow starts. She searched for weaknesses despite dominating opponents. That relentless pursuit of growth is often what separates champions from legends. Later, she returned to Sweden and tested herself under kickboxing rules. Without elbows and prolonged clinching, some of her strongest weapons were unavailable. Even so, she controlled the fight through volume and conditioning. She won convincingly, but admitted afterward that kickboxing did not fully satisfy her competitive instincts. Muay Thai remained her true passion. Then came one of the most difficult moments of her career. A highly decorated veteran stood across from her in a highly anticipated showdown. However, problems emerged during the weight cut. A miscalculation cost Smilla her title before the fight even began. Losing a championship on the scale can devastate fighters emotionally. Many athletes never recover mentally from such setbacks. Smilla chose a different response. She stepped into the ring determined to prove herself regardless of circumstances. The early rounds were difficult. Her opponent displayed speed and accuracy. Clean shots landed. Momentum seemed uncertain, yet Smilla refused to panic. She stayed composed, trusted her conditioning, trusted her preparation. Gradually, the fight began turning in her favor. Then came the breakthrough. A devastating body shot shifted the momentum completely. Suddenly, the veteran found herself under relentless pressure. Smilla attacked with intensity and confidence. The finish eventually arrived, and the victory became one of the most impressive performances of her career. By that point, she had already accomplished more before turning 20 than many fighters achieved during an entire lifetime. Yet she was not finished evolving.